It's already recording. Yeah, it is cool. All right, guys, what's going on? So this is Jay, and I'm sitting down with my buddy Vinney today. Now, not a lot of people, know Vinney and my relationship. Vinney was actually my boss. Fuck, when did we work together? It was like what, 2009, 2010?
Yeah, but I think before that was 2010 the recession. So I think it was right before that, right?
Like right around there, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere
So
around
anyway, it was a long ass time ago, and it's funny because he always tells the story about how I showed up for the interview in a fucking goddamn 3-piece suit, like I was going for a fucking Wall Street interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Vinney, just to, a lot of my clients do know who you are. So I talk to you about them with a lot of people. However, a lot of people watching this or that are going to be watching this don't know who you are yet. So just to kind of start us off, like give us a little background about, who you are and like what you're doing right now, just so they have some context as far as like, maybe why I actually got you on the call today and why I thought it was so important that people actually had a chance to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I probably jumped in just like, all of us who started, right? Playing sports as a little kid, playing sports in high school. I was, blessed enough to play sports in college. I played college hockey, and then stayed. Did my bachelor's in physical education, and then I did my master's in exercise science, and then I just kind of stayed in that realm for a little bit, and then got into was always training, obviously, as an athlete, right? And just wanted to stay in that field. Like I didn't want to be anything else. I didn't enjoy anything else. And then I got into competitive bodybuilding, just as something to keep competition, right? Like,
and listen, and I don't want you being modest either. You actually have your pro card, right?
Yeah,
I think I remember. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a pro. But I mean, it started because I guess I needed something to make, it's funny. I always joke, like, you and I, we see the people that we train or we work with and they come in and then they just want to grind it out. And I'm like, man, if I don't have like some kind of goal, it's hard for me. Right. So the bodybuilding thing was just kind of like keep me in the gym. But that's where I really fell in love with like the nutrition part, right? Because I finally started seeing like, wow, you can train and you can train and you can do all this work. And then, but the minute that you started messing with exactly how you ate, I saw like amazing changes in my body, like overnight. And I tell people, younger wise, I was a smaller kid. Like I graduated college, I weighed like 155, and I wasn't a lean 155. I remember my senior year DEXA as an athlete was like 14%, right? And I was busting my butt, so obviously my body wasn't just genetically built a certain way. And then when I graduated and started playing around with how I ate, it was just like looking in the mirror like, whoa, what is going on? And that's really when the fascination started with nutrition, supplementation, all that kind of stuff, and I've always really gravitated towards it.
Cool. So, and like I said, you know me from about like 10 plus years ago, because not a lot of people believe me when I tell them like all the struggles that I went through. You actually saw me when I was working with you over at Can Do, like doing 3-hour workouts, killing it. And I never fucking looked any different, did I? Which is what, and I mentioned that because like, I try to tell people just from all the decades of just like mistakes that I made, that like you can work out till you're blue in the face. We got a client right now that we're sharing. One of my clients I sent over to you. I tried telling her, like I tell everybody else, you can work out till you're blue in the face if you don't have the proper diet. And that doesn't mean necessarily eating clean. There's a big difference between eating clean and eating properly based on your goals. But if you're not eating in alignment with what you're trying to accomplish in the gym and just in your routine in general, it's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and nobody wants to believe that. So it's amazing to me how like, the diet portion is such a huge portion of it. It's probably the most important portion, but it's also the part that most people fight us on. So, just kind of get right into it and ask you a couple of the questions of what I wanted to, bring to the people watching this today. So trainers like a dime a dozen, everybody knows that. Everybody watches this, knows somebody who is a trainer, had a trainer, or used to be a trainer. Out of the thousands and thousands of people that are still doing like personal training and nutrition what do you feel it is that makes you stand out from the rest of everybody else? Because you've been doing this for over 20 years. You got a huge list of clients. You got your bodybuilding pro card. You got all these accomplishments that some people only like wish to get up to. But what do you think? What is it that you feel makes you stand apart from like everybody else?
I think it's the fact that, and it's funny, I coined this term all the time with my clients and people that I work with. I say, especially for nutrition, I say, look, here's what the science says. You do what you want, right? So I don't go with gimmicks. I don't go with, I've spent time honing in on like science-wise what the body does with nutrition, right? So once you know really what it does, it kind of clears things up, making it a very black and white, and then it becomes a choice, right? So the difference is I've heard a lot of trainers, oh, you gotta eat this, or it's kind of very blanket statements that I'm like, well, you don't know the person, and you don't know, nutrition is broken down so many different ways, right? I mean, we can separate it by age, gender, your overall goal, health, hormones. There's so many layers, right? And a lot of times I hear, even now I hear blanket statements about nutrition. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work, and usually with my clients, they can tell you, I'll just lay out, science says X, Y, and Z is going to happen if you do this. Now it's up to you, once that's your choice, but I think the issue is really a lot of not knowing,
And it's funny you mention that, because my next question is going to be, one of our clients, our mutual clients, she always refers to you as like the mad scientist in nutrition, and just the statement you made, totally understands it. But I remember she was telling me this one story about, there was an issue where we had turkey meat in her diet, and there was something going on. It was a story where she pretty much said, Jay, Vinney told me to eat something and then take a picture exactly 1 hour later and sent it to him. And he was able to figure out exactly what was going on with my diet. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So it's funny too, because she actually just started training back up again since the mask thing came off. But it's little stuff like that that is always, like, at least in my mind, had you stand out from every other nutritional based coach that I know. And over wherever our facility, we do the basic nutrition stuff too. I mean, we have our diet programs and everything that we do with our clients that we've had great success with. But all these years, every time I have a client who just isn't getting the results with those base programs, because like you said, there's a lot of factors behind it. Age, gender, weight, hormones, lifestyle, likes, dislikes, all that stuff. Whenever I get a client who's just not losing weight, it's, you're always the go-to person. And just, doing this for 20 years, I don't want to take away from the training side of it. You've been a phenomenal trainer also. You've had a laundry list of accomplishments. You've got a ton of clients who, obviously, we're not going to mention their names, but if we did, I'm sure a lot of people watching this would know who a lot of those people are. But what exactly was it that made you start wanting to focus more on the nutrition side, and not so much get away from the training side, but it just kind of make it a secondary focus? Like, why the nutrition?
Well, simple. What's that? What do we call, what do we got in the week? 168 hours. Is that about right? 168, right?
Yes, sir.
My answer to that was simple, getting to the goal. If I'm going to see them 2 or 3, if you're lucky, 3 times a week, that's 3 hours. Well, I had to figure out how could I be with them for 168. And the only way was to basically get into their kitchen, get into their nutrition, right? So if I can get them to adhere and change goals and make life-changing goals in their nutrition, then I can get a better piece of that 168-hour pie than just my 2 hours of training. So I just found that when I was getting involved in that with clients, then everything was changing. And not only their bodies, right? Then now they're telling me, oh my God, I have energy. I feel better. I'm working better. I'm functioning better. I'm not getting this anymore. I'm not getting that anymore. And then, as I like to use, I mean, it could be new or old for whoever's watching, the whole matrix idea of, here's the blue pill, here's the red pill. I always felt like I was pulling my clients kind of out of the rat race, right? I was like, once I pulled them out of the whole circle of someone saying, eat this, do this, and rotating them in an unhealthy lifestyle, they got pulled out and were like, wow, this is really a big difference, right? So that's kind of what really pushed me towards spending more time in the nutrition space than the training space. Don't get me wrong, I love the training, but I just feel like I can do
it's more
so much
impactful.
more.
You're able to make a more of an impact almost.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
correct.
awesome, great. So that leads right into my next question. So I want to get so common example, like, so you're at the gym, you have your clients, even probably you probably get like me, your friends, family, coworkers, everybody, their mother asking you the same questions all the time. What are two of the most common mistakes you see people making on their own? Like, whether it's one of your clients that come to the gym or it's a referral, you got somebody you're not working with yet, right? They never worked with a trainer and they're trying to do it on their own. They got Muscle and Fitness magazine. They got whatever video blog to follow on Instagram, and they're piecing together their own routine. Because I think a lot of people watching this video are going to be able to relate to some of these. What are two of the most common mistakes you see people making? And, what do you recommend to fixing that?
Number one, I mean, the biggest one, this is for the average person, I would say 7 out of 10 people, surprisingly, are under calorie or under caloric.
Absolutely. Not even a question.
And what I mean by that is, right, they don't even realize that, like, again, science-wise, they're actually starving themselves in a starvation state, because unfortunately, in so much of our lives, we're kind of taught common sense of the 1 + 1 should equal 2 formula, right? Mm-hmm. Common sense would say, well, if I work out 5 times a week and I eat nothing, then I should burn all my stored body fat. However, our body has a whole different plan for us other than what we want for it, right? So number one, I would say 7, maybe even 8 out of 10 times, most people that come to me or to see are way under caloried for what they're trying to accomplish.
It's funny. There's so many of both of our clients right now who are going to watch this. They're like, fuck, they're talking about me. It's crazy. I know like 4 people. I'm gonna get a text message. Jay, were you guys talking about me in that video? So like, just to give an example, like just to give like a little shell shock to people. Average female, 150 pounds, stay-at-home mom, takes care of the family, does a lot of, goes to the gym, for an hour. What would you say a target for somebody who's just basically looking to do your general stuff, look good in their clothes and they're going out, hang out, not be overweight, general health? What would you say an average daily intake for somebody should be? If you had to get blind shot in the dark.
Yeah, that's easy. I mean, let's just say that if I wanted you to lose weight, right? The simple formula that seems to work 9 out of 10 times is your body weight times 10. So that means that woman should minimally start with 1,500 calories.
That's crazy. So many people are eating so much less.
Right. So now she's telling you, when you do the math quick, that she's consuming 600 to 700 calories a day. Usually I'm like, how are you even alive? And how are you even functioning? Right. So, I mean, and that's me not accounting for NEAT and not accounting for exercise and not accounting for possibly what their job is. Right. That's me just saying, usually if you do your weight times 10, it's about your BMR. That's about your BMR. So that's the amount of calories that person should take just to function daily. Right. So now if they work out 3 times a week and they kind of move around, we're in a deficit. They should be losing. But I'm pretty sure that person's not anywhere near 1,500 calories.
Not even close. Right. Not even close. It's crazy. Right. It's like you go to tell people you need to eat more to lose weight, and then they look at you like you're crazy. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. Right. All right. Now here's a different angle I want to put on it, right? It's because 50% of the people can relate to that question. The other half of the people at home who are going to watch this, I would say, especially nowadays, I think at least half of the people watching this can say that in some way, shape, or form, they've worked with a coach, a trainer, an instructor, a guru, an influencer, whoever. There's a million people in the world who know how to work out supposedly these days. But, common mistakes you see other coaches making with their clients. And what is like, so you're sitting down, I came to you and say, hey, Vinney, guess what? I used to have a nutritional coach. Great. What did he have you do? And I give you the laundry list of garbage that he did for me. Like the number one thing you see almost every single fitness coach or nutrition guru out there make, so people at home can walk away and be like, wow, I know I at least got to watch out for this. What would that be?
I mean, there's
probably a lot, but I have to limit to one.
I'm going to try to not get in my soapbox, but this is my personal pet peeve. and especially because of social media, 9 times out of 10, that coach you have has a coach for him or her, and they're just down, they're just watering down what their coach gave them, and they give it to you. So there's ways, right? What I say is you can easily differentiate what we call between the cooks and the chefs, right? The cooks are just going to give you the menu they were given. The chefs is going to ask you the question, like I ask my clients, okay, what do you work? How many times a week do you work out? How's your sleep? Do you have any hormonal issues? What does the blood work look like the last time you did it? There's a bunch of different factors. That's what a nutritional quote unquote coach would ask you. Someone else who's not that, savvy, they're going to say, just do what I tell you in the sheet that I send you. And not have the answers, right? When you have the questions. Because I tell my clients, I like the questions. I don't mind the questions, because sometimes there's ones that come to me like, wow, I've never been asked that. Let me find out. Let me think about that. It's fun to learn through someone else,
Cooks versus chefs. I'm definitely stealing that with me. That's a great example.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on. I wanted to just real quick, real bullet point. We're going to kind of bullet point through these real quick. Just get your opinion on it. So some of the more common things that people they come to say, oh, I'm doing this diet and that diet, just to get the opinion of somebody who's got over 20 years experience in the industry. They've worked with a ton of clients. I mean, you've worked with athletes, celebrities. I'm not going to mention names, but I've seen some of your clients, and there's some pretty high up people. So you've worked with everybody in the spectrum. So somebody who knows what they're talking about and has the credentials to say, yes, I am a figure on this. I know my shit. What would you say? So your opinion on intermittent fasting, yes or no?
Yes, but.
But I love the but. So, but what?
So yes, I do like it. Now, this really works well if someone understands their caloric intake, right? The thing about intermittent fasting is, the problem is most people that try to do it, they intermittent fast and then they also starve themselves, right? So the issue is that you can fast, but in your eating window, you still need to get your BMR numbers, right? But most people fast, and then when they're told to eat in their eating window, they're under eating. So in essence, we're still just starving.
You know what's funny? It's funny too, because I had a few of my clients who just got off for Ramadan, and it's it always amazes me how that particular I don't think holiday's not the right term, but but that particular religious event, for that particular religious event, so many people always refer to that when we talk about intermittent fasting. And I tell them that, they think, oh, they go all day without eating. How is that? I'm like, they have to stuff their faces at night to the point where they get sick sometimes, because you still got to get all your micronutrients, your macronutrients, got to get your water in, and it's such a small window. And I see some people, there's a guy in our area who does this one diet, I can't even think of the name of it, but it's pretty much a diet where you're starving yourself. So you're starving yourself for 4 days. You eat for 3 days, starve yourself for 4, and you do that for 6 weeks. And it's oh, you'll lose 30 pounds. But there's so much of the weight comes back on, and people don't understand. But I heard intermittent fasting was good for you, and it's the same thing. They don't realize you still have to get your macro. You have to hit your macros. You got to get your BMR. Correct. Another one that I hear a lot about, keto. What are your thoughts on that?
I do like it, just because it seems easier for people to adhere to, because the fat tends to satiate. But here's the issue: it's not a caloric free for all. Right. So you got people who are like, I can eat butter and cheese. And I'm like, well, you still got to count your caloric intake. Right. So if I want to lose weight, I still need to be in a deficit. Right. So, but a lot of people think it just means the calories don't count because there's no carbs there. They still count, and they count faster when you're eating fats. Right. But I tend to personally like them. They work really well for women. I use it a lot. I use it on myself. It just helps with, killing your insulin levels but you got to get your numbers right. You know what I mean? You still got to get your numbers right.
I don't know if you remember this one, but back when I was working with you over at Cando, and you had me try a diet for you. You were getting ready. It was like one of your competitions where you were about ready to get your pro card. And I remember you got screwed on it that year too also. But there was like it was the diet was pretty much 2 scoops of peanut butter and like 2 scoops of whey protein. And you heard all these things about it. You're like, Jay, I need you to try this diet. And I'm like, all right, what is it? And for like a month, I was living off fucking peanut butter and fucking protein shakes, and it was fucking awesome. But my wife wanted to kill me. You remember that?
Yeah.
It was pretty much a playoff for the keto, right?
Right.
But I remember where I fucked it up is that I wasn't measuring my tablespoons of peanut butter, and it turned into a fucking caloric free for all.
Right.
So it's just funny. I just remember I thought of that when like you mentioned that. Like, I remember that time I did that diet.
So that's the biggest. I would say that's the biggest issue with keto, but I do like it a lot. I like it a lot.
Now, what about your the vegan diets, vegetarian diets? I see the same thing. A lot of people that I see, I got this one girl, love her to death, been training her. She's Indian. So Indians naturally have a diet with a lot of lentils and everything inside of it. But a lot of people mistake vegan or vegetarian for like, I'm going to have a carb free for all.
Yeah. And that's my biggest issue with vegan and all that non quote unquote meat or protein, what have you. They what I like to say, they bastardize science, right? They're like, well, if I have rice and beans, I have 2 incomplete proteins and it makes a protein. And then I'm like, yeah, in your serving, we're talking about 1 cup of rice and 1 cup of beans is going to give us 10 grams of protein and it's going to give us 60 grams of carbs. So now they're not adding the carbs up, and then they're wondering why they're gaining fat because they're over fueling themselves, right? And they got no protein, so they're holding no muscle.
All right, cool. The macro diet, the whole if it fits your macros thing. I know a lot of the CrossFitters that we train that come to us for a lot of accessory work and like rehab work, they swear by that. What are your thoughts on that one?
Then, I mean, my simple answer, because I've run into this with registered dietitians, and that means what you're telling me is if the diet deems 1,600 calories and I eat 1,600 calories of ice cream versus 1,600 calories of chicken breast, I should get in shape the same way. And you know that's not going to happen. So my answer on that is it's a little misleading. Again, it's somebody trying to sell easiness to something that's not easy.
And it's funny too, because because that's one that usually comes up with our, over at our facility a lot with people is like, oh, if it fits your macros, everybody around here's tried CrossFit once or twice. Right. And I know the example that I try to give people is that like, and a lot, for those of you guys who don't know my backstory, I apologize, this TMI, but for a lot of you guys watching do know mine. There was a period in my life where I got in a little trouble and I was doing some time with the state of New Jersey and I was behind the wall. And during those 2 years, I was with a bunch of guys who were, locked up for like 20, 30 years. And these guys were living off of fucking ramen noodle soup and tuna fish and like the worst fucking possible diets you can imagine, but they were ripped. And I was like, what the fuck? So, me being a fitness trainer, I was very intrigued by it. So I'm sitting there, hanging out with these guys. Some of these guys are like the wrong kind of fucking person you don't want to be hanging out with. But I was really intrigued. And I was kind of like, I wanted to learn as much as I could. But the one thing I noticed with these guys is that they always they worked out for like 10 minutes, maybe 15. And they were just fucking tired all the time. They were lethargic. They had no energy. A lot of times they were getting sick because while their macronutrients, the proteins, the carbs, and the fats, while they were able to play around with those, their micronutrients were just so off balance because the food source they were getting was so friggin' thrown off and horrible that they just like on the inside, they were like unhealthy as shit. And I try to convey that to people too. It's like, listen, you have to live your life outside of the gym. Like, you got to be able to operate, do your job. Like I get a lot of salespeople who try doing the fasting thing and they can't do it because they can't operate. They can't do their sales calls. So the example I started giving to people was that if you had a brick wall, right? Your bricks are kind of like your macronutrients, your proteins, your carbohydrates, your fats. That's what you're actually going to build your house with. But the thing that actually is going to hold those bricks together, the mortar, those are your micronutrients. And if you don't have the micronutrients, that mortar in place to hold the bricks together, you can stack up that wall as high as you want, but it's going to come tumbling down. And I know that like, for our people that once we started like talking to people and we use that example, people started getting that in their mind. Like, okay, now I know why I do need to make the healthier food choices. Yes, while you could get away with the unhealthy proteins and the unhealthy carbs and the unhealthy fats, the quality of food does matter because there's other stuff going on just outside of the base proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. So it's funny how you mentioned that, because I totally agree. Like, if you can eat cleaner and get more nutrient dense food, your workout's going to be better, your hormonal response is going to be better, and your body's able to better respond to the workout and the dieting you're putting it through, because it has the basic shit it needs. I know that was something I was missing for a long time, and I try to convey that to people. And that goes to my last part, supplementation. All right. What are your thoughts on that? What are your opinions? What do you typically recommend for people? Your side of the story.
I mean, look, I've always been fascinated by supplements. I think, nowadays we're really lucky, right? There's some amazing people and companies doing some amazing stuff. I do think you can, here's how I use with supplements when people ask me. I'm going to ask them what their base diet is. I'm going to ask them what their cal intake and how much protein in their macros. If you can't tell me that, don't ask me about a supplement. Meaning we don't have a foundation, right? Like I always tell everyone, you cannot use something without a foundation, right? So if they don't have a foundation, so I use food and supplements kind of like doctors do, right? No doctor's like, hey, Jay, here's a bottle of pills. I don't know, take as many you want. Let me know what happens. They're always like, take one, let's see what happens, right? So it's kind of how I use supplements and food, but I will use food first. And if they're tapped out with their food, right, then I would go to supplements. The only other time I use supplements faster is for convenience, meaning someone just can't get to whole food. So that's when I like to use shakes and, things like that. And lucky enough, nowadays, there's so many great, natural, clean products in regards to supplements and protein shakes. That's kind of the only time I would use supplements faster. But usually they're like the last thing I talk about. Those don't get popped in until I have a client who kind of knows their macros in and out, and then we can get to supplements. But I'm not against them,
Mm-hmm. It's just that it seems almost like so many people are so quick to jam something down somebody's throat, because I heard this example from somebody where there's like, he gave an example of where how much you charge for something and how much somebody's willing to pay versus how much effort needs to go into it. Where I've had a ton of people where the new kids that we have in our team, like some of our coaches that we brought on board with us, I always tell them that people are going to fight you on spending like $70, $80, $90 for a 1 hour personal training session, but they'll go blow $300 on fucking supplements, like in the bat of an eye, because in their mind is, I am just going to take this pill and magically everything's going to be okay. And I think a lot of people, prey on that. And you get a lot of I had this one girl, she went to the vitamin shop. I think it was Vitamin Shop, that one or GNC, one at a time. She had a question. She came in, she was new to the gym. She was going to ask me, hey, Jay, I want to get some supplements. And I was like, all right, I'm like, let me guide this lady in the right direction. I was in a session. I told her to come back. She didn't come back. She had a run out. She ended up going down to GNC on her own. And the kid behind the desk sold her three workouts. Not even everything. He sold her 3 of the same thing.
Right.
And she came back. I'm like, what did you buy? A fucking 6-month supply? She's like, no, he told me I needed this and I needed this and I needed this. Yeah. I'm like, Susie, her name wasn't Susie. I'm like, Susie, he sold you fucking 3 of the same thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of people do that, where they fall into these situations where they hear a great story. They say, oh, buy this pill. It's a magical weight loss pill. And in our mind, we think, hey, I don't have to work as hard, so let me buy this pill. And then people get up wasting so much time, energy, and money on these supplements because they didn't have the proper guidance from somebody like yourself, right? Who can guide them in the right way, and then people get a bad taste in their mouth,
Well, that goes to here's the one statement I use, even with my nutrition clients who want it a little faster, right? I always remind them that, so the 20 pounds we want off, you put it on in a week, right? No. Mm-hmm. But they want the 20 pounds off that they took them all COVID to get. They want it off tomorrow. Want it off today, right? So they have no patience, and I understand it, but that's why the industry can sell those fat loss and that's the thing, right? A lot of people, they're getting on the scale, and that's not fat loss, that's water loss, right? We know that it takes some time to get real fat loss tissue. Even when you jump on a nutrition plan right away, the first 7 to 10 pounds is going to be water weight. and then we can get into fat tissue. But that's probably usually the biggest issue is just the speed of everything. And what you said, it's really hard. And most people won't know what they're doing. So you hear a story about, I took this pill and lost 20 pounds. Well, I guess I'll try it, right?
Now, one last thing before we go, I know you probably got a ton of clients you got to get into before the night starts up again. So you've been doing this for almost 2 decades, if not longer. You got a laundry list of clients that you helped out, A-list celebrities. You still there? Oh, there you go. Good.
Yeah.
I thought I lost you were saying. Celebrities, athletes, or everybody from like aspiring, high school athletes up until like the elderly trying to rehab. A is that you've done it, you've seen it, you've been there, you got the t-shirt. Yeah. And I know it's hard to limit it down to just maybe 1 or 2, but give us an example of somebody that came to you, they were just about ready to give up. They tried everything else. And, somebody you were just really able to help out that nobody else was able to do. And like, not only the physical aspect, but like just the mental and emotional difference it made for that person. Like, do you anybody off the top of your mind like that?
Yeah, there was one I had way back when, probably beyond 10 years ago, when I first really started putting more time into nutrition. And she came to me with her blood work and her cholesterol was like, I don't know, 340 or something.
Oh, wow.
And the doctor wanted to get her on statins and all these drugs. And she was afraid. I said, how about you just, let me do your nutrition, take supplements, right? And in, I don't know what we're in, about 3 months, we got her number down to 200, right?
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she went to her doctor and he's like, oh, the statins are working. And she said, no, I haven't taken one. He's like, what do you mean? She's like, no, my nutritionist got the number down. So that's one that stands out to me that shows the power of food and the power of what nutrition can do, and then another one was probably my client who I still had, just kind of like her job is all over the country, literally all over the country. And just always battling, hormones and travel and fatigue, and could just never got her body in the right place. And finally, after, it's been we've been together about 4 years, kind of honing down her nutrition, she's now able to maintain her weight and change it whenever she wants, because she knows what's going on, but that one took some time, but that's another big one for me.
Awesome. And Vinney, and obviously we're going to put this out there for people to contact you. If we're going to put a lot of information in the notes section of whatever post or Instagram link or whatever we end up putting this into. But for people who are watching this, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, ask some questions, maybe follow up a little more, kind of see if maybe working with you be maybe the missing link for the puzzle. I know a lot of my clients, I've been talking to you about them for years. This might just be the thing that gets them to reach out. How can somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out to you, just, kind of give you an idea what's going on and see how maybe you may be able to help them out and maybe get them to that next level that they just happen for whatever reason be able to get to on their own?
Yeah, I mean, you can email me at qfactorfit@gmail.com. Or they can find me on Instagram, probably either through your link or, my link is IFBB Q Factor at IFBB Q Factor on Instagram. So they can find those 2 places.
All right, awesome, great. And then before we go, any questions, comments, concerns, points, suggestions, funny jokes, anything that comes to mind? Anything the audience should know about you? Nothing whatsoever.
I mean,
tell us about Diesel Dads. I saw this shirt. I wanted to throw a plug for that. What is Diesel Dads? Tell the people what is that? I know it's a t-shirt brand, but
it was before COVID 2 years ago. My partner and I, we were just working out in the gym, and he's in the industry, and he's like, we got to start something. I'm like, yeah, what about Diesel Dads? He's like, he's one of these. He hears it and he goes, right. And then the next day he had a layout for me. So it's just kind of like, I always felt like, I know there's the dad bod thing out there, but there's a bunch of us like yourself, like me, like other guys who just like want to push it optimally. We just don't want to just coexist into nothingness because we got kids, right? I want to show, I got twin boys that are 4. I want to show them you can be in shape and you can push it to whatever limit you want, no matter what's going on. So that's kind of, and that doesn't mean just fitness, right? I just felt like in everything, it's okay to want more in your life, either professionally, personally, physically. and go chase it, right? And that's kind of what the idea of being a diesel dad is, like, just walk the walk, talk the talk,
All right, awesome. And you guys still have your apparel line going, or did you put it on pause for
Yeah.
COVID?
Yeah, no, it got a little slowed down with COVID just because of, as you know,
Everything production.
shipping is kind of like what used to be 6 weeks is now like, we'll get it to you when we want, So,
Dude, I got a treadmill I've been waiting 12 months for. My wife's ready to kill me. She thinks I
right.
took the money and spent it on some other shit. It's
So we're
horrible.
just slowly ramping back up, but we do have some inventory on the website if anyone wants to check out. It's www.diesel-dads.com, or it's also on Instagram at dieseldads, if anyone's interested.
Definitely. I think a lot of people are going to go check that out, especially the dads watching this too. So, Vinney, listen, thank you for taking the time to, do this video for us today. I think a lot of people at home are going to get a lot of good information out of this. And just knowing there's another resource, like a lot of my people know that anytime I don't feel confident in an answer, I am the first person to refer them out to a nutritionist, a chiropractor, anybody who, if it's not my wheelhouse, my thing is not so much like, hey, how can I make money off this person? It's more like, what can we do to give this person the help they need? And just by doing the right thing, karma's going to take care of us in the end. And I think, we've always talked, and I've always looked at you as being like the go-to person for, anybody who needs that next echelon level of like, listen, you're going to work with one of the best, and he's going to tell you to do shit, and you have to follow it. So I think a lot of people are going to be able to benefit from everything you said in this video and whatever they reach out to you for. And thanks for taking the time with us today, man. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Appreciate you having me on. And if anything else I can help with your people, let me know.
Awesome. Great. And guys, just so you know, we're actually going to try doing an in-person live seminar. I'm going to say this summer. Obviously, it's going to try to be towards the sooner end of the summer versus the later. But, just to give you guys a chance to come down, this dude's got years of experience, ton of information, ton of knowledge. That just, you're not going to find a better knowledge source than this guy right here. So if and when we're able to coordinate a date and a time for that, I'm going to put it out for you guys. We'll throw it out there. And it's definitely going to be one of those things you want to put some time aside for to get down to.
And right? just to tease that, Jay, that's my wheelhouse, right? Like, I'm not one of these guys that like to stand up and talk my BS and tell science. I like to hear real life. So like the way I run them is like, we'll collect before the seminar everyone's questions, and I can answer the problem. Like, that's what I'm good at. What's the problem? I'm going to give you the answer. Not like, so I think a carb is this, and I think a protein is that. I'm not that guy, So it's
almost like Q&A style.
Yeah, I love it that way, because every time I've been to a seminar or a clinic, I've always wanted to hear what I wanted to hear, not what the person's telling me, right? So when I knew I was going to do these, I'm like, I'm never doing that. I'm never the guy going to be like, I want to hear what people want answers to, so I can answer it for them, right? Since I'm there. So if we're able to do this, it really, look, I get really excited about it, because I feel like that's when people walk away with like, wow, I know what to do, and they can do it and hopefully change their lives.
Awesome, Vinney. Thanks. I appreciate that. So we're gonna lock down that date. I'll reach out to you during the week. We'll start coordinating time for that. And
great,
I'll touch base with you later on through text after the video today, so we can follow up on it and plan from there, right?
Sounds good, man.
All right, man. Thanks for taking the call. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for watching and tuning in. See you guys in the next one.